worth saying if it's already said. Even if it all goes over your head, believe it if you want to. So keep your eyes on the road and your head in the stars. Follow it down the rabbit hole just a little while longer. You can change anything if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to.
Deportes, eSports, casino online, caballos y mucho más. Regístrate ahora, deposita y cobra desde casa. Bakeries.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for day 2 of the SiGMA Americas Virtual Summit. Today's summit will feature a fully interactive expo hall, a live chat box feature to speak one-on-one with exhibitors and direct message attendees and panelists, and a high-profile lineup of speakers sharing the newest developments in online gaming, making this an ideal networking, deal-making, and educational event. Today's conference will focus on new gaming developments emerging throughout Latin America. We will hear from top industry leaders on topics such as developing regulations, updates on the Brazilian gaming market, the growing online poker market in South America, player acquisition, and how 2020 has accelerated a new era of gaming throughout South America. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and a special thank you to NeoSurf, and thank you for joining us today. And now I'm pleased to introduce Michael Muscat, partner at Helix Partners, talking about the positive impact iGaming has.
Hello and welcome to SiGMA America's Virtual 2021. I'm Michael Muscat from iGaming Colombia, a boutique service provider with a presence in Malta and Bogota, focused on assisting international operators and providers alike to enter the Latam markets from a legal, regulatory and commercial perspective. In this keynote, I'll touch upon how the iGaming industry has been and can continue to be a force of good in the world. I'll look at this from a comparative perspective to shed light on how a strive towards streamlined regulation can assist economies to create jobs, increase foreign direct investment, and contribute generally towards their technological advancements and new infrastructure. Using the major European jurisdictions as an example, we can see the shift from unregulated to regulated spaces over a span of 15 years. Previously, the so-called grey market prevailed, where operators used a centralized European license to initiate regulated operations and bring these on shore, by leveraging the EU principle of free movement of goods and services in an economy which was underdeveloped and ill-equipped to deal with the dynamism that was brought about via gaming. What was once considered to be a stigmatic, high-risk market which was shunned by local authorities is now a developed, tech-fueled, regulated industry. How can this translate to the Latam markets? Europe's story can help the new markets harness the added value from our industry and use that value to increase productivity, livelihood, and general economic well-being, without making the mistakes of the past. It's a known fact that the iGaming industry is already up and running in Latam. Colombia is a sterling example of how a regulated approach can add value to a country and give back to its inhabitants. It regulated online sportsbook and casino offerings in 2016, adopting a European-style regulatory regime. All gaming taxes collected are destined to the public health system. During the COVID pandemic, this proved to be a much-required revenue stream for Colombia's public health system. Since regulation, iGaming has contributed over $50 million dollars to Colombia's subsidized health system. A legal bet is therefore considered to be a bet in favor of public health in Colombia. Recently, Coljuegos, the Colombian regulator, informed that Colombia's regulated online gambling market saw turnover growth of 148% during the first half of 2021. Online gambling accounted for more than 25% of total effective tax revenues collected by Colombia's gaming and lottery industry, which shows a 6-month market size of $150 million. We have seen technological advances in this market, which have led the regulator to adopt legislation for new verticals, such as live casino, instant win games, and online bingo. The regulatory approach has attracted international heavyweights. Acquisitions of local operators by the likes of Betson and Entain took place between 2020 and 2021. William Hill has also established a Colombian presence. This clearly proves that regulation is likely to lead to foreign direct investment, which will create jobs and encourage the adoption of new technologies within the country. Albeit being accelerated by COVID, the presence of the iGaming industry in the jurisdiction is facilitating the shift from cash to digital payments, benefiting the local population, adding value for retailers, and ultimately creating jobs in the technology sphere. A tech hub is forming in Bogota and Medellin, much like that which was formed in Malta over the past 15 years. And this clearly is a result of the legal certainty created by a dynamic and efficient regulatory regime. So what has Colombia taught us, and how can the rest of the continent benefit from this? A regulated approach is desirable to foreign investors. A regulated approach creates a spin-off in the market, paving the way for other industries to follow suit. And with regulation comes the ability to designate taxes towards other economic sectors, such as public health. The South American continent is in a perfect position to harness the positive impact of regulation in Europe by understanding what has worked and building upon this. This should not be a missed opportunity. In today's trying times, the creation of new industries can help assist economies plug the gap created by COVID. A look at the mistakes made by European countries currently regulating can also lead us in the right direction. There is a real chance to regulate with hindsight, by implementing laws that can take account of problems before they arise. Concepts such as responsible gaming and player protection are no longer novel, and therefore, new market regulators are in a much better position than their counterparts were 10 or 15 years ago. Fragmentation of law should be avoided. The situation in Germany and Sweden, for example, has caused uproar amongst operators. The same could be said about Brazil and certain parts of Argentina. It is clear that there is a will and a need to regulate in Brazil. Offshore sports betting companies are highly financing the football industry in the country. Brazilians are indeed betting on sports. The sports betting sector in Brazil is experiencing a real duality. While it already sponsors 85% of Brazilian clubs in the football first division and represents an important share of advertising on both open and pay television, the websites themselves cannot operate on Brazilian soil. Although the operation was legalized at the end of 2018, the lack of regulation does not allow these companies to become regulated and therefore operate within the country. In Argentina, federalization and restrictive capital requirements in the more attractive region of Buenos Aires City have made operators think twice about market entry. Clearly, there are better ways of balancing state and consumer as well as operator rights. The tolerant approach of Peru has led us to think that forthcoming regulation will promote growth within the country and enable it also to become a localized hub. Chile has also hinted at forthcoming regulation. An unregulated market provides operators and, more importantly, players with alternatives. The aim here should be to discourage both the player and the operator from the offshore model, to create regulatory incentives that may then contribute to the market in question. Mistakes in regulation will lead to players migrating to offshore sites, which are far outside the reach of local authorities and, more importantly, extract capital from local economies. The Colombian model is the best illustration of how regulation can rest on the pillars of economic and technological advancement, keeping the public service in mind. In conclusion, it is safe to say that iGaming has generally positively contributed to state affluence and the development of a myriad of spin-off sectors. From tech-savvy affiliates and neobanks to the total attribution of tax revenue towards healthcare, it is clear that states should bet on regulation to channel the good that can come with such an industry. Throughout the rest of the conference, we will take you through a series of panels, visiting most of the topics discussed in this keynote, including federalization and the fragmentation of laws, how iGaming has stimulated various types of innovation in Latam, and how different countries on the continent are approaching regulation. I would like to thank SiGMA for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this, and I'm available to answer any questions as the day progresses. Hi everyone, and welcome to our SiGMA panel on fragmentation and federalization in Latin America, and whether or not this is an obstacle to iGaming operations in the region. I'm here with Andre Faur from Game Plan, with Fernando Garita from Betcris, and Karen Sierra Hughes from GLI. And we'll be discussing today the various legal obstacles that operators can encounter, and hopefully take some suggestions on how to make these better, to make the whole iGaming experience smoother in the region. I'm going to start with Karen today, since I'm sure, being from one of the major technical labs in the region, I'm sure she experiences day-to-day questions regarding different technical requirements in each jurisdiction, especially obviously with regards to the regulated markets. From my experience with iGaming Colombia, from advising different B2B providers in this market, what we normally see is, okay, I've certified for the major markets, I have a B2B license in a major jurisdiction, but each time I make an update to my game, I have to go back and recertify from scratch. How do you think we can smoothen out this process for B2B providers, and what would be your suggestion in general to harmonize technical compliance across the board?
Thanks so much first to SiGMA for the invitation, and thank you, Michael, for moderating this panel today. Very happy to share it with Fernando and Andre. Well, when we talk about the technical compliance process, and I know the panel main focus is the federalization, no? Because of the challenges that also implies in a country or in a jurisdiction where you will see different local governments being the ones with the competence of gaming. It's really something that it's in the technical level, I believe that it's easier to achieve some type of homologation or harmonization in English, because really, when you look at technical requirements, you are looking at requirements that are addressed to software development, systems development that has very specific common background that you can use as reference. We really see, and this is something I want to share just as an example, there's about 500 jurisdictions regulated in the world, right? 300 of those has used the GLI standards as a reference to develop their requirements or has adopted the GLI standards. No, as a lab, one other thing that we do is, in addition to certification, is develop technical requirements, standards that are publicly available for suppliers, for regulators, for governments. No, so that just gives you an idea of, yes, it's possible. No, there's always, of course, some very specific things that changes, and sometimes very small things that changes jurisdictions from jurisdiction. Sometimes it's things related to the games. For example, the return percent to player may vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but in general, requirements are very similar. No. I can say also in terms of differences that can affect also technical standard certification process. Maybe it's also regulations that are not even related to gaming, right? Maybe it's regulations that are regarding other type of industries, no? For example, in Colombia, well, we can't use Bitcoin, well, because Bitcoin is not a currency that is approved by the national banking regulatory or financial regulatory agency, right? So that limits how technology can be applied to gaming, no? But in terms of certification, as long as there's some type of base that is similar, jurisdiction from jurisdiction, really the certification process is only updating the certification to the differences. And when we work with the industry, we really recommend for that approach. You know, there's no need to create the wheel again when there's things that are working so well in so many places in the world right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. On the Malta perspective, because it's also one of my jurisdictions, we've just regulated B2Bs, whereas previously you simply needed a certification. And now, since there's a large chunk of the European industry based in Malta, it's easier for B2Bs who are licensed to service more operator clients. Do you see an eventual B2B license happening in any of the jurisdictions in Latam, Karen?
Well, that's something that is actually already happening, like not in all of them, because traditionally most of the Latin American jurisdictions did not require for suppliers to be licensed, not for B2B suppliers of gaming platforms or game content. But we see that jurisdictions that on the land-based side had been traditionally following a licensing process for B2Bs. It's happening. Like, for example, in the case of Argentina, right? The city of Buenos Aires, traditionally suppliers needed to be registered for land-based operations. Now for online, they are requiring the same. In addition to the certification process, you need to register as the supplier before the regulatory entity. Colombia doesn't do it, so that's an example of one that doesn't do it, but there is other jurisdictions that involve that part of the province of Buenos Aires also, no? That requires that type of regulation. For example, Peru, you heard about the projects of laws and the possibilities of online gaming being regulated there. Licensing of suppliers is in all the projects that have been discussed so far, because for land-based is a requirement. No, Panama, for example, I'm from Panama, so I have to talk about Panama. Panama also for land-based registration of suppliers, same for the recent approved regulation for online gaming in 2020. It's part of that, and it's something very recommended because at the end, it's part of the operations, it's part of the industry, and there needs to be some type of background
investigation or also responsibility, no, of the B2Bs before the regulator, no, not only the operator, no, at the end, no, that's what the objective of that is at the end.
So we've touched on the technical compliance side, and thank you very much for that, Karen. I'd like to turn to Fernando and hear about the operators and from Betcris's perspective, from having a multinational approach within Latin America. What kind of legal obstacles and regulatory obstacles are you facing, and how would you make the experience smoother if you could wave a magic wand and speak with the regulator and say, look, this is what we need to function better on a day-to-day basis?
Well, Michael, well, hi everyone. Nice to share one more time with you guys, Karen and Karen. Well, actually, from the perspective of the operator, for us, even in the case of Betcris, for years, when I remember when we started the process with Malta, 2006, 2007 was totally new for a company from Latin America, start to get in the process in a kind of regulation, you know. And well, from that moment, Betcris, as a brand, we decided to start looking forward to be always in the regulation way, or looking for that kind of markets. And as Karen mentioned very well, it has to be a complete balance and a good approach between first, get a good certification lab, choose the right one, you know, approach to the government and try to work together. Here in Colombia, for example, there is a lot of, you know, interactive situation between operators, federations, and the companies. So I believe is from the operators, actually right now we are just looking to integrate different products. And one of the things we request already, so from some years ago, is so that platform or that product is certified or not, or so that is a huge and important thing. You know, the people they like that. So the customer, the final customer, they love to be in a platform, and the one they are sure they will be, you know, very safe and playing, get the aval of the country and everything. So from my perspective, is we, the operators, we don't have to wait until a regulation process showing up. We have to try to auto-regulate before that happens, not as a requirement, as a better situation for the in-house of the company. So it's my perspective from that one.
So it's the job of the operator, as I understand, to take a proactive rather than reactive approach and be one step ahead of the law in the sense of defining the practices which then become regulated. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's what's happened in Colombia, what happened in Malta all those years ago, as you mentioned, and now with what's slowly taking shape across Latin America. One country that is facing certain regulatory obstacles and has created a lot of curiosity in the market is Brazil, just because of its sheer size. And we've been waiting for a harmonized and structured regulation, which unfortunately hasn't passed the hurdles of Parliament yet. And now I'm going to turn to Andrea and ask, from the Brazilian perspective, what kind of regulatory obstacles are operators facing? What do you see in the market when you're advising your clients, and how would you make it better?
Well, the Brazilian scenario has always been quite a challenge for our industry. Before the current government, we had very strong progress on regulations and moving in the whole gaming structure and legislation through the parliament, and getting enough attention from the politics environment, from the government to that question. So there was a lot of investment, a lot of lobbying happening, which was a very positive scenario. So if we remember 2018, we were all very optimistic about Brazil. We said, well, it's going to happen anytime. We need to be there. And then government changed. And as of now, definitely, um, on top of the normal, difficulties of having, a new regulation go through the legislation and the whole structure of the government, the whole all houses and all that. Now we have a government that has a, very several different, even humanitarian issues happening in Brazil. So all those, all those efforts are kind of on standby from my perspective. So right now the Brazilian market is on hold, but at the same time, we see, and that's very important. That's key. We look at several different, operators and platforms, and a lot of big brands in the gaming space, setting up operations in Brazil, using what I would call a gray area in our legislation, but this is something that will be fixed. Uh, I hope hopefully pretty soon after 2022, after next year. Um, setting up at least their brands and setting up mind share over over the public. So we see big brands sponsoring soccer teams, football teams. We see a lot of presence of even Betcris. We see branding happening in Brazil all over the place, which is key for those brands to establish themselves in such a huge market in Brazil. And as the situation is right now, it's even more challenging because the federal government is kind of detached from the 27 states governments. So right now there's kind of a war between the state, the region governments towards the federal government. So it's not a very good time for kind of trying to talk about let's get federal and that will happen on the states, and it's kind of rain down to all the Brazilian states, because as if the government, if we do it right now, that won't happen. That won't happen. You have to go to the sole structure will happen in Brasilia. Then you're gonna have to talk to each one of the states, which is obviously um, incredibly challenging. So the idea is, I would say, it's being extremely smart for any brand wanting to get into the Brazilian market, which is massive, right? We're talking about 20 almost 230 million people. We were talking about several at least $12 billion or more market waiting to happen. So it's waiting to be pushed through. So it's very smart for the brands to get in the market, to localize their projects, to get ready, because the trend right now is for the situation that we have before the Bolsonaro government to get back into where it was right before the Bolsonaro government. Is very, at least for the surveys that are going right now, for the polls that are out right now, is very unlikely that he will continue the government, that he'll be reelected. So it's very, very unlikely. So it's very likely that someone from probably Lula or his candidate will get back into the government. And Lula, as we know, the Lula government was very, very keen to establishing a gaming industry in the country. So that was moving very fast when he was in the government, or even Dilma was in the government. So we should expect that and get ready. So that's what I would say about and that will happen on the federal level, and then it will rain down to the states as it should be. So, and obviously we're gonna get the best practices from around the world, and that's my take on the situation right now in Brazil. But it doesn't mean that we should be standing by as an industry? We should keep moving forward and preparing ourselves.
So definitely, this federalist approach, right? Brazil has kind of stalled what the industry has been waiting for, even though it should be happening sometime soon, and we hope that the political situation will change. As far as fragmentation is concerned, we're seeing different countries taking different approaches in Latam. If you look at Colombia, for example, it's a very local gaming license where you can only onboard players who have a Colombian ID. If you look at what's proposed in Peru and what's happening in Panama, this is more of an international license, where as long as your operations are set in the country where you're licensed, there's no kind of restriction from the licensing country on taking players from other jurisdictions. And that's very similar to the Maltese and Curacao licenses, for example. So we're seeing these different mentalities and these different approaches being taken in Latam. Karen, what are your views on this? And do you think that having a more structured international license would be more beneficial to the industry?
Well, I think just the same way that we were talking before about standards, right? And how they have to be some customization that applies to the specific to the jurisdiction. An international license, I don't see that happening. I mean, like there's so many different, policy objectives. Let's put it that way. For each of the countries in Latin America, like you just mentioned Colombia, it's a jurisdiction that promotes the development of gaming. Promotes the success of the operators, because they understand that monies will go to the government to go for health, support, etc. There's countries that only tolerates gaming. They are not there to promote it. They're tolerating it, and because of that, it's very restricted what is allowed and what is not allowed. Really, the commercial impact that some decisions will take are not relevant or important to them. So in that same sense, licensing and international licensing process may differ a lot from country to country. No, we see jurisdictions where an online gaming license depends on the operator having a land-based license. That's a big restriction, right? A big difference when you think about the approach of other ones, where like Colombia is open, Panama is open, no, and some in Argentina are open too. In Mexico, it's open supposedly, but it's easier to do it through already a land-based operator, no? And that's just an example, no? On that sense, what you mentioned about the players also, from where the bets can be taken from, in terms of that, and what's going to happen in Brazil, right? Or what's happening in Brazil and what's happening in Argentina. That's a big challenge, because how do you interpret it? Where the bets are coming from, and how do you limit that jurisdiction border, right? Like in the case of Brazil, where we're seeing a lot of development on the lottery sides, on the state government side. What is very clear from the federal government directive is that those bets will need to be restricted to their borders, right? So there needs to be actually a way to restrict, just like in the US. That's what happens here with your location, your fencing, whatever technology you have to use. But then in Argentina, where bets are supposed to be also, restricted to the jurisdiction, there's different interpretations on how that's going to happen, right? Either if you have a DNA, the registration, your national registration, or your domicile in the specific territory of the jurisdiction, or if it's really a territorial geographical fence, no? So international licensing I think is the hardest part to achieve harmonization, both in the operator side and in the supplier side, because some also regulators don't think that suppliers are important in the equation, or they don't need to have that relationship with them for some reason. So that's a challenge.
If you take the situation in Europe as a comparison, 15 years ago, you'd have a Malta license, you'd be based in Malta, you'd operate using free movement of goods and services in the EU, and you'd be present to be operating in 28 countries from one centralized location, right? Now, over the past couple of years, each country is regulating, and that's causing over-regulation and fragmentation. So everybody seems to be waiting for legalization in different countries in Latin America, but this could also slightly backfire if there's a massive distance between the laws that are created and the taxation systems that are created. How would we solve this? As a closing remark, I want to ask our three panelists here, how would we solve this, and how would we create an ideal situation, if we had to be dreamers for 1 minute, to create a service offering and the legal offering where companies could operate freely and make as much revenues as possible at the end of the day. Let's start with the operator. Let's start with Fernando from Betcris.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Well, yeah, it's complicated. Even look at even in Europe, they are still changing and taking, some jurisdictions and promoting, take his own regulation in a formal way. 15 years ago to now is another story. We have to see what will be happening in the next, I believe, 5 years, because technically before, as Andre mentioned, so in the 2018 we were expected, and the companies, we moved to Brazil, start hiring some process people, be ready, to this will be happening right now. But look, it is a political thing too, so it's a matter, is very complicated, because we depend of the governments and we depend of the laws to be in the best way possible for the industry. Here, the some companies and certification labs, from my side, they will be doing a great job, because they teach them the how to do it, what is the best way, with suggestions, recommendations, and everything. But yeah, for Latin America, I expect in the next 5 years will be a huge change, and all the politics and the government and regulators, they will be taking, to be on board in a regulation process in the formal way. Also, a huge challenge is the technology, as Karen mentioned before, the geolocation. So we need to go to find a way how the governments has to find a way how to go there, because we'll be with a good regulation, with geolocation, with technical, that will be help definitely the countries. And yeah, it's complicated. So from 15 from now, and now in the next 5, maybe, I don't know, there is some new products. There is the esports, they're showing up, they're starting, they're doing great. So look, it's a generation, it's a new generation of players, so we have to adapt to that.
Thank you, Fernando. And Andrea, what are your views on this?
So it's quite interesting. I would, when you said ideal, I start thinking, there's a common saying that says that a power only respects another power. So when we were talking, about getting, like an ideal scenario where regulations and we get things federalized and as less fragmented as possible. We, as an industry, we need to come together as well. So we're talking about we're talking a lot about the government, the things that needs to be happening on the other side, on the people that needs the things that need to happen. But on this side, from the standpoint of the industry stakeholders, there is a need of I'd say a Latin American organization, an organization that will come together and get support from all the companies. That is, in my humble opinion, will be the only way that you can actually approach governments with enough, power, enough, knowledge and success cases to show, hey, if we standardize, some of the things, you don't need to do everything, but if we standardize at least the basis of operations across Latin America, you tap, you can reach like 3, 4, 5-fold, the business that we have right now, because we keep fighting like small battles, and mostly, winning them. But at the same time, there's this big battle that, that would be great to be, fought if we come together as an industry into, all together and talk directly with the governments. And then you have enough power to come and actually talk to the ministries and actually talk to the, right politicians that, will make things move forward, instead of just, I have the support of this deputy and that deputy, and they don't talk to each other. And then you have like fragmented laws and state laws that doesn't talk to, to the federal laws. So, and it's a big mess. And I say that as, as a Brazilian. So my company, we have, a couple bases around the world, but the Brazilian entity, we pay nothing less than 18 different taxes, 18 different taxes. You have an idea. We have to really, we need someone fully, dedicated to actually sort out what the hell we need to pay to the government or not. What are the credits? It's completely insane. So this is the situation that we don't want. We want the opposite. So, and I think we need to come together as an industry. That's my point of view.
Karen, I'm seeing you nodding in approval there. Do you have any closing comments to make on this point?
I'm a kind of revolutionary guy, so
No,
I like revolutions.
I love what Andres said about getting together in an international association. That's so hard. It's even harder internally in some countries. In some countries, there are 2-3 association of operators and they fight each other. So imagine in an international, it will be awesome. I mean, like we just have the example of IAGA, International Association of Gaming Regulators, where operators and suppliers are also members, associate members, etc. But they have for example, a licensing form that is presented to their members for operators and for the industry that wants to adopt it. So that's a great result of a collaboration between several countries and jurisdictions. You have to pick your battles. I'm listening to Andre because there's things that you just can't win, right? But let's say international liquidity. Everybody talks about that and how we're going to shift that, right? Some countries in Europe were able to do it, but I'm sure they sit down and review their requirements, their regulations, and how they were similar in things that are really critical when you are going to allow something like that. But we need to have a table where to sit. And unfortunately, I don't think in gaming, in Latin America, there's that table. I mean, there's a table that we put together every year, the regulators roundtable, but it's not the same as having an organization that actually is the objective is that, achieving harmonization at some stage.
Thank you everyone for your insights. I'll just close off by saying moving towards a system of mutual recognition between countries, which is supposed to be what's going on in the EU, even though we're also seeing fragmentation here. I think the end goal should be some sort of mutual recognition, and that would make the overall experience smoother so that operators can make revenues and at the end of the day pay taxes. Hopefully not 18 types of taxes, but taxes. Thank you all for your time. It's been great, and I hope to see you all soon in person. Hi, and welcome to our panel on Brazil on the rise, where we'll be discussing the Brazilian iGaming market, both from a legal and regulatory perspective, as well as a gaming perspective. This market has been being watched over the past number of years, and everybody has been eagerly waiting for the developments to take place. I'm joined by Eduardo Carlezzo from Carlezzo Avocados and Hugo Baumgartner from RCT Gaming. Hi guys, welcome to the panel. I guess we need to both consider the technical and legal side of things, and also operationally what's been going on in the Brazilian market. I'll start with Eduardo. Could you give us an update on the legal scenario, as everybody has been eagerly waiting for Brazil to take off as a regulated market? What's going on at the moment? How has the pandemic possibly affected the legislation? What's the political situation, and when can we expect a Brazilian license?
Hi, Michael. Hi, Hugo. I can start by saying we have no news, and then I can go bad. Unfortunately, we are expecting since December 2018 regulation to put in place a system to finally legalize sports betting. But what we are seeing from our federal government is that nothing happened. We lost, just to give you a perspective, we lost almost 2 years by a debate inside of the Ministry of Economy about decree, future regulation, etc. And then someday someone realized that the legal standards to put in place the authorization they want to make did not fit in our legal system. So they had to switch everything. Then by June last year, the federal government transferred the question, the draft of the regulation from the Ministry of Economy to our National Development Bank, which is a large bank that is very well known in Brazil, respected for huge infrastructure projects. So this matter is there since June last year, and then nothing happened. Nothing. It's just unbelievable. Someone might think what's happening behind the doors to not put forward this issue. So at this stage, the only thing the bank has been done was a public call in February to invite interested companies to participate in the planning of the future model for the future regulations, and nothing more. I don't know what they are doing, to be honest. It seems that they want to be creative. It seems that they want to create their own system. I am more direct. We have worldwide experience. We have plenty of experience in the world. We have in the table several cases in which we just need to copy, copy and adapt. We can take very advanced regulation sports betting because there is plenty of experience in the world right now. You copy and you adapt to our local system, and that's it. But we are still losing time, and it seems that again we are going to have we are losing this year, and this matter goes to the next year. At least one good news we have right now. This is not immediately applicable, but for the future, when we finally have operations in Brazil, there was a law last month changing the taxation system. The previous taxation system and the previous way the law determined the distribution of prizes and awards was a little bit crazy. It was, I don't know what they had in mind when they did that. So if we took, like as example, the previous system, the taxation would be made on turnover, and on turnover would be very expensive. So right now, luckily, and this is good news, the system was changed for a better and more rational taxation model based on GGR. And when we leave now sports betting and look to the more broader issue about legalizing gambling in Brazil, we are still lost in the middle of something. No? There was a wave in the National Congress, in the Parliament, through both houses on Senate and the Chamber of Representatives to put forward some project. But it seems that it was again lost in the middle of something. I don't know, maybe in the middle of the influence of religion in the government, because we know that our president is deeply affected to the religion standards, let's say. But now, and now bringing just one good news, I don't mean that might be something in the future, but for several political issues we are confronting right now in Brazil, let's leave aside that, but the new chief of staff, it's a senator that is a big defender of the legalization of gambling. He was deeply involved in one project of law, and maybe the fact that he's the chief of staff, that's the most important political position in the federal government now, he could have force, enough force to put forward this project. So this is for the first talk an overview about what we are seeing legally, both legally and politically in Brazil right now.
So there's been this much-awaited legislation which seems to keep being stalled due to the general push and pull factors. However, operationally and realistically speaking, we're all aware that there are iGaming sports betting operators present and operating on this market. So we can call it a so-called gray market. Hugo, from your perspective and from an operational perspective, what are you seeing in this market, and what kind of presence do you see in this market, from sports to casino to products? We can all say that there are operators present in Brazil. How is this happening, and how is it existing in a legal vacuum?
Hey guys, thanks SiGMA for the invitation. Nice talking to you guys. Good question. Eduardo gave us a really overview of what is happening in Brazil. I have been on the industry since 1995, so I have lived some time where gambling in Brazil was in a way allowed. So since 2005, 6, 7, we are waiting for this law. So we have been preparing ourselves for 15 years now. But anyway, I can see that progress are being done. The sports betting thing or vertical is already a reality in Brazil. As you told Michael, is such a gray, but I don't see it that way right now because there is a law that allows them to operate, that there's no regulation, so they don't know for who they're gonna pay taxes, and so it's still kind of gray, but not gray anyway. But it's a reality. I mean, everybody knows that all the championships in Brazil and football teams and every single corner in Brazil, there is a way to make a bet, you know, online, even in places, in land-based, you can find a guy that can sell you a bet in football for tonight if you want. This is from a sports betting perspective. From the gaming perspective and land-based casinos, as Eduardo told, I mean, the chief of staff is somebody that could be someone to push it. It's a good news, I really think. But I still think that there is some bad movement. What I can see, there is people pushing against the law because the illegal market is more interesting for them than to be legal. Because unfortunately, again, the land-based operations are also a reality in Brazil. You can find a machine, small bingo hall in every single big city in Brazil. So my conclusion is Brazil is losing money. Again, some years before, would not be possible to talk online or with people about gaming because it was really a bad thing to talk about gaming at that time. People didn't want to talk. Even politicians, they never wanted to talk about it because it was something prohibited to talk about. But now times are changing, minds are changing. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and the world is smaller. So people know that they can find a casino, a sports betting, legal operation in Argentina or in Peru or in US or in Mexico. I mean, everybody wants to go to a casino when they are traveling. So as the world is smaller, people feel that something like this has to happen in Brazil. But again, big operators are already in Brazil. I won't name it, you guys know it, but it's a reality. There's no way back. And hopefully Brazil don't lose time anymore and somehow do the regulation as far as it's possible.
So it's a fact that the market exists, and as you very bluntly said, Brazil is losing money, and I think the sheer attraction for operators is the size of the country and population, as well as the fact that most people are football crazy, right? Everybody loves sports there, and it's just football is synonymous with Brazil. But what operators really do want to see is legal certainty. So it's a bit of a catch-22 here, where the regulators are losing out from collecting tax money in comparison to, for example, the situation in Colombia, where all the revenues from licensed operators are going towards the health system. So you see a massive distance between the two markets here. However, when we're advising people in the field, we always hear about Brazil. When you speak about Latam, you get the first mention is always Brazil. So this market exists. It's there. Besides regulation, how could we make it better? What's currently working and what currently isn't? How are payments handled in Brazil? What's the banking scenario like when it comes to online gambling? How does marketing work? Can you enlighten us on the localized operational practices that are going on in Brazil?
There are, as you said, gambling in Brazil is not legalized. So that's the key issue, right? But we know that our gray market is turning into a white market in reality, because we see advertising on television openly. In the past, I remember like 5 years ago that we had some brands advertising, but they were hiding, let's say, the product. They were hiding the idea to be selling sports betting. In fact, they were sending for another, you're trying to convince for circumvent the law, if I might say. Now, everything has changed because it's openly in big television channels. You see open advertising regarding sports betting. And you see that also right now in the football clubs, because there is no prohibition for sports betting companies to reach an agreement with football clubs and to advertise sponsorship in the main shirt. So right now, when you take into consideration the 20 clubs in the first division of Brazilian Football Championship, 19 have relationship or sponsorship agreements with operators. Just only one, and this is just a matter of time. I believe that in few weeks, this last club will have an agreement. So this is happening. But on the other hand, because it's illegal, you have difficulties to put in place, especially the movement of money, the flow of money, because in somehow by being illegal, if you take money being moved from one side to another, it could be considered like money laundering. You have very strict money laundering laws that are a problem for that. And you also see that big banks, our big banks, they are, when they see sports betting, they turn out. They are also not involved. The movement of capital is made through payment facilitators, more or less, and some very small banks that understand the deal, but very rare, they understand how it's happened, and they do. We need full legalization. We need full legalization. It's better for all the countries. So I don't understand why we are stopped on this, why we don't have full legalization to put in place a correct system and bringing tax to the country, bringing revenues, because we are now discussing tax reform, a big tax reform in the country. So I don't mean that the revenue generated by the sports betting will pay enough money to the government to cover the holes they have right now on the budget, but it's money. And when we are talking about a tax reform, sports betting is one of the channels to bring more money to the country.
Eduardo, you mentioned sponsorships of football clubs, and 19 out of the 20 football clubs are sponsored by sports betting operators in Brazil. How enforceable are those contracts from a legal perspective if one of the parties would not perform on their obligations, for example? Are the rights of the sponsoring company still protected, or will this be seen as illicit by the courts over there?
I believe there will be no restrictions to enforce and to fight and to dispute such contracts. If the operator doesn't pay the club, of course the club could open a case before the Brazilian courts in order to recover the money. But what we have seen as well, on the other hand, is that some operators took advantage to the, how can I say, the clubs, they are in a weak position since 7 or 8 years regarding sponsorship agreements. What happened in Brazil was that big companies, not only because of football, because of the economy in a whole, they left football, and so they left sports in general. So there was a big hole in the sponsorship revenues in football clubs. What happened? Since there was this hole, several clubs played the first division for a year or maybe more than a year without having the main sponsorship. The operator saw an opportunity, and then they entered strongly in the market.
Understood. And Hugo, we're mentioning marketing techniques in the Brazilian market. Besides the sponsorship of football clubs, what have you seen in this market, and what do you think tends to work for operators from a general marketing perspective?
Talking about sports betting again, I always believed that Brazil is still learning, or the Brazilians are still learning how to bet. So from my perspective, the land-based operation or the retail operation is something that has to be done. I know that big operators are not interested in this kind of operations because they are all focused on online and VIPs or whatever. But being in Latin America for several years and going around, I could see that Mexico, for example, is somewhere that you need a land-based operation. So you give more certainty, and more trust that this operation, this house of bets, this company really exists. And if something happened, I can go to a place and reclaim my ticket, redeem my ticket. Any issue that I have, I can go there and talk to someone, a real person. So Latin America, Brazil, they are quite the same. To start, to have a physical place where people can check their tickets and even do an issue or talk to someone is something that has to be done. As I told you before, in every corner there is a place where you can bet, you can make a bet. So it's easier for someone to explain to the person how to bet. And from my perspective, this market will come from the retail to the online. It will take a lot of time to do it. So if someone wants to go to Brazil, it's important to think about the retail market because it will be important to have this presence.
In Colombia, in fact, we've seen a lot of joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, but obviously we're always talking about a regulated market here. There are rumors in the general industry that certain operators are partnering up with the land base in Brazil. To what extent are you seeing this happen in the market?
Let's put into perspective. There is right now a big liquidity in the market for investment in sports-related business. I mean, buying a sports franchise in US, buying a football club in Europe or even in Brazil, buying a sports tech company, and also buying stakes in sports betting. And this liquidity comes from US. US is the big source of this liquidity right now. We see a movement with private equity firms entering more and more into the area, and also buying stakes, merging or buying stakes in some sports betting operators, because in US it was also there was a boom after 2018, after the Supreme Court ruled that at state level, each state can legalize their own operations. So it's happening right now, but it didn't reach Brazil because here, since we don't have a legalization of gambling in general, private equity firms or investment funds, they cannot buy stakes or invest in companies that, in the end of the day, they provide an illegal product. So they are forbidden by law to do that. I hope, of course, that after the legalization, there will be a movement. We are going to see the sector deals in the sector, transactions, buying and selling, investment funds, private equity firms enter into it. But we need time and we need maturity.
So, as stated before, everybody's on the fence and waiting for this golden piece of legislation to come and open the market or awake the sleeping giant, as we've said on many panels before. Hugo, from an operational perspective, what would you advise for anybody wanting to have Brazil as part of their offering at this stage?
For sure, everybody at least knows some of the things that I'm going to say. But again, retail presence is important. A lot of big companies are coming to Brazil in a way that sponsorship, brand awareness, doing their job right now. Unfortunately, we do not have any laws yet, but what I'm seeing is that some of these companies are already talking with different partners, see in the way how they are going to be in the market when we have this regulation done. So movements and agreements and deals are being done. Maybe they're not public yet, but for sure, in the future, when we see the regulation and the permission already in place, for sure these agreements will become public. But again, local payment, it's important, as everybody knows. Retail presence is important. Portuguese from Brazil is something that it's really important. Not Portuguese from Portugal, and have an offer that Brazilians and the local people know. I mean, nothing than something that they are afraid of. Try to make the product to look like a Brazilian product. That's my thoughts.
We seem to be running out of time, so I'll ask a closing question to Eduardo, and then we'll have closing remarks. Eduardo, from a legal perspective, we're aware that this market is in existence. However, the regulator doesn't seem to be taking an active approach either to regulate or to stop the market, or to stop the gray market from functioning. So we're kind of in this legal limbo right now, where there is a presence. We know there's a presence. It's not being actively stopped, but it's not being approved. In Colombia, when Colombia legalized, over 500 sites were blocked, but we're not seeing any geo-blocking take place in Brazil. Is there any particular reason for this? And do you think that after legalization, there will be an effort to keep illegal operators out of the market?
Yeah, we don't have geo-blocking because there is anything taking care about this right now. There is a hole in the industry. We don't have a regulator. As soon as we have this final decree in place, I believe that the government is obliged to create a regulator, and through a regulator, yes, we can have geo-block. Yes, we can block some IPs. Yes, I believe, I personally believe, I don't know if they're going to do that, but I believe in a very proactive action through this regulator to protect the market, to protect the legal market. I believe. Sometimes I lost the faith in governments, in the agencies, but I want to believe that this matter by being in the hands of the National Development Bank, who is accustomed to deal with concessions, accustomed to deal with agents, accustomed to deal with regulators. They would be able to create a strong regulation and give the power to the regulator to implement a protection to the market against the illegal market.
And to close off, Hugo, is Brazil on the rise?
Brazil is on the rise since 2000, early 2000. That's what I've most heard from my friends of the industry. Every time that I met someone, they always ask me when it's going to be gambling legalized in Brazil. In the past, I used it to say soon, but now I really don't know. But anyway, Brazil is always on the rise. As I have been on this market for quite a while, as I told you in the beginning, I have lived in the 90s. The industry was really strong, and I think I don't know when, but Brazil is on the rise, and we are on the right way. We are on the right way. We are going step by step. Maybe if you ask me, I could done something different, but at least I can see something positive being done for the last years. So that's why I'm being honestly with a good mood and a good feeling that Brazil is going to legalize everything soon.
Thank you, Hugo and Eduardo. What are your comments on that to close off this panel dealing with Brazil?
Brazil is on the rise since the Portuguese land here in 1500. And it seems that we will still be on the rise for the last 100 years, and it never happens. So I hope one day our governments, our authorities understand what is Brazil, what is the future of the country, and stop these crazy things we see right now, losing time with irrelevant discussions in the parliament, in the government. They should focus on the economy. They should focus on creating jobs and to bring competition for the companies, a better environmental system for the business. That's why I expect for maybe one day we finally say, okay, rise, just come.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you, SiGMA, for having us. Brazil, a population of 200 million, sports crazy population. We just need the regulation. We hope to do this in Sao Paulo next year. So thank you guys for chatting with us, and thank you, SiGMA, for having us.
Living if you're already there, it's not worth saying if it's already said. Even if it all goes over your head, believe it if you want to. So keep your eyes on the road and your head in the stars. Follow it down the rabbit hole just a little while longer. You can change anything if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to.
Hi, and thank you for staying with us during day 2 of the SiGMA Americas Virtual Summit. We've had a great first hour, hearing from experts talk about the different laws and jurisdictions throughout South America, updates about the Brazilian gaming market, and the positive impacts of iGaming. Up next, we're joined by the CEO of EvenBet Gaming to talk about taking poker online in South America.
Deportes, eSports, casino online, caballos y mucho más. Regístrate ahora, deposita y cobra desde casa. Betcris.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dmitry Starostenkov. I am CEO of EvenBet Gaming. We have been working in Latin America for 4 years, and today I would share with you a bit of our experience in this region. Let's talk about common trends in Latin America. High percentage of gray and black market activity in iGaming. In Mexico, for example, the authorized operators' revenue reaches about 50 million, but at the same time, the whole sector revenues are estimated about 450 million, so 9 times bigger. That impacts the online poker vertical directly. Another example, Brazil is the biggest market for poker clubs and in the region, due to online gaming legislation not moving forward. So the clubs and unions, owners, work in the shadow. Officially, only 10% of total online gamblers are based in South and Latin America. But as far as most of the market stays out of regulation, we don't know the exact market capacity. Mobile gaming predomination. Poker and other card games are traditionally winning when it comes to mobile. According to the research done by PayPal and SuperData, 27% of all mobile gamers play card games regularly. 70% in South America believe that mobile games offer a safe environment. Across almost all South America and Latin America, the share of mobile players in poker reaches 90%, in comparison to Europe, where it's only 54–56%. In Brazil only, there are over 130 million registered smartphone users, and the average mobile penetration rate across the continent reaches 55–60%. There is just one exemption. Argentina is the only country where desktop poker games are more in demand than mobile apps, due to their long-term online poker traditions. Argentina has been one of the most active online poker hubs historically, home for online poker networks in the region. No language barrier are welcome. Localization and payments localization are the key in the region. Main challenges for launching poker online projects. No best practices for the regions yet. Very few poker operators in South America know how to work with online tournaments, promotions, different types of bonuses, and other acquisition and retention tools for poker. It's different from slots and poker sports betting. First, it requires skills to play and learning curve to win. Second, unlike casino games, it offers intensive socialization and communication integrated directly into the gameplay. Therefore, traditionally, poker players look for different promotions and marketing incentives, tournaments, free rolls, guaranteed prizes, leaderboards, cash races, rakebacks, and so forth. We have recently released a comprehensive guide for casino and sports betting operators on how to work with the poker vertical. Contact us for your copy. Increasing competition with global giant operators. For example, 888 Holdings, PokerStars, It's a Right are growing in Latin America. Why would players prefer a local operator? Primarily because of the local payment methods. For example, betting shops and point of sales. And more comfortable environment to play. Less regular players, Spanish language to communicate and get support. Complicated regulation. Even in Colombia, until recently, online poker was available only in multi-format casinos and not standalone. In conclusion, I will talk about online poker software vendors. Choosing the right software vendor will help to avoid pitfalls. A provider can help with setting up marketing tools and educating the operator staff, offer a customized poker product targeted at the local audience, and guide through at least technical certifications. Thank you.
Welcome to SiGMA Americas. We are here to talk to this panel, we are here with Álvaro Quiros, that is the country manager of Latam in Oddspedia. Welcome. Sebastián Perrier, that he's the managing partner for iGaming Latam and the NECO Games. And Victor Espinosa, who is the CEO for Loto Punto. Welcome, everybody. We are going to talk to attracting South America players today. And yeah, I think it's going to be really important that we have an open conversation here, just to, if you want to talk, it's okay. And the idea is just to have a friendly chat. The main question here, I think, is how we attract these new players. And I think we are going to start with Sebastián. How we attract the new players in South America?
No, I think good morning. Well, for me, good afternoon for you guys in Europe. Well, as we always say, right? First, South America, it's a big continent with multiple countries. So depending, obviously, on the country, how you would attract them. Also, it depends, as in any other place, on the regulation. So whether what you can do in Colombia is not the same that you can do eventually in Brazil, if you can't do anything at all. And same goes for Argentina, whether the province is regulated or not. But if I have to give the first highlight to begin the conversation, I would say being very local as you can, and aggressive on bonusing. It's a right way to get the players in.
Good start. And Victor, tell me, what is the main marketing actions that you are acting, or what do you think globally in South America? What is happening?
Well, I think it comes to the user experience. And when you mention user experience, you necessarily have to talk about how users can pay operators and how can they claim prizes from operators. Colombia is the most developed regulation and market of South America in terms of sports betting. And we're seeing that those operators that offer cash payments and, they can get payments and pay players in cash are the most big ones. The main operator here has over 62,000 retail points where players can, top up their accounts and get their money prices, instantly. And that's a key factor for attracting players, is to offer them a convenient way to pay with cash and, to be able to play to your platform with cash.
Okay, you mean that having local payment options is very important to attract the players?
Yeah, absolutely. Since only 2 out of 10 people own credit cards, it's a cultural thing, this reluctance to adopt these digital payments, in a massive way. So there's an absolute need to offer cash payments to local players, because that's their culture. It's not a matter of access, but it's because of culture.
And Victor, sorry to ask there, who's the largest in Colombia, and is that a network of payment stores only dedicated to them, or is something that other operators can use?
They're vertically integrated. They operate lotteries. They operate nationwide games, wires, payments for different banks. So they're vertically integrated into these points of sale, these retail points of sale. And the biggest one is the main sponsor of the soccer here, which is called BetPlay. It owns about 40% to 50% of the market share. There's about 18 operators in Colombia. Just William Hill and Bwin entered this year. So it's a very competitive, landscape, but the operator that offers, the most convenient way of interacting with players is the one that is taking the market.
Well, we are talking about user experience, we are talking about payment options, we are talking about localization. Álvaro, what do you think?
Well, that's a key factor. As Sebastian and Victor say before, Latin America is a huge country. It's a huge continent, let's say, not country. Obviously, there are many countries over there. So localization, as I can speak as an affiliate, odds comparison, and data provider, we can say it's a key factor. Why? Because obviously, as Sebastian or Victor could say, Colombia is not the same country than Argentina. They have different regulations. They have different user, how the users work with the or deal with the platforms are really different. Also, we can extend also all the user experience we have to to Mexico as well. So there are many countries, very different users. They used to, as Victor said, they used to pay normally in cash, or they used to prefer cash instead of the payment methods, which is also something to take into consideration. And that's why, from our experience in Expedia, we are trying to localize as much as we can. So that's why we have also for Spain, we have also for Mexico a brand. For sure, other brands will come in the future, as the Brazil one we have already. We have to take into consideration that all the Spanish speakers are not the same in Latin America. So we have different countries, different styles of how to bet or how to see the odds, how to play casino. So this is something we have to take into consideration.
And Alvaro, I have a question. Sorry to jump.
Good.
What's your view on the affiliate environment in the region? Are there many affiliates? Are there few? How is that from your perspective? Like stage of
Well, from my point of view, what I have seen before in my experience is the main affiliates used to have only one Spanish site. So this is work only for Spain and also for Latin America, but that is a huge mistake. So that's why from Expedia, we are doing the opposite way. So we are creating new affiliates, new pages. Especially, we have the Brazilian one and the Spanish one for Spain, but now we are going to publish the Mexican version. So that's why we are going to introduce more and more other pages, because we know that the people, that the customers want an own experience for their country. So that's something that's a huge mistake that I have seen in the other affiliates. So there's something that should be completely different. No huge page for all Spanish speakers, but we have pages for each country, because it should be treated like that.
That's amazing. I think something that is clear here is we are different from Europe, and we are in another stage. I think we are in the stage where we need more education. As Alvaro said, like affiliates are very important in the region. As Sebastian said, I don't think that there's too much at the moment. It's something that is growing, it's keeping growing, and maybe in some regions like Brazil, you have more affiliates. Mexico and Colombia started to keeping up. But I'm not sure, Victor, how do you feel it in that way? If we don't have many affiliates, what is the other source of acquisition in these markets?
Okay, the Colombian case, operators are resorting to high ticket, TV advertising. That's like the main promotion channel that you see in ESPN, and between matches you see the whole array of publicity of them. But I think that there's a big opportunity for developing an affiliate marketing system. Is very the concept is very new, and you don't see a lot of differentiation in terms of bonuses. Everyone offers the same 20,000 pesos bonuses in the country, and the TV ads are basically the same message. So I think that between affiliate marketing and a robust social media campaign, there's a lot of opportunities there to attract new players.
And don't you think, Seba, I'm with you now, that the sponsorship is something, I know him, he's always like that, you know, he's always wants to talk. I think it's something that we see, and now with the Copa America, it's like a lot of new operators from Europe coming and trying to do actions. We have Betson, for example, that is sponsor the whole Copa America, and now he's sponsor the tournament in Peru. What do you think about that? Like, sponsorships are very important at the moment to enter in the markets. Seba, your turn.
My turn. Sorry, I was thinking it was for for Victor. I mean, yes, of course, branding it's super important for brand recognition, but that's not necessarily performance and acquisition driven. So it's part of building a long-term brand, and it's something you need to do to earn the trust of the players. But I think our challenge is really performance marketing more than branding. Branding options are there, especially if it's regulated. So it's relevant, but the challenge, I think, with a poor affiliate network in every country, it's going more for performance. So really, I had a question for you, Victor, while you were talking again. It's just, has Google and Facebook allowed to do pay-per-click advertising already in Colombia? Not yet.
Not yet. We have, that's for experience, to Loto Punto, which is a payment kiosk for everyday transactions. We created a lottery retail platform called La Juega. And yeah, we had all set up our strategy, our Google Ads and everything. And when we tried to launch it, there was a ban from Google saying, hey, you cannot advertise for Google with gambling. So, just forget about it. I think that you must focus on valuable and relevant content to drive traffic to your site. The paid media could be a challenge. Maybe you can do some guerrilla marketing, as the operators are doing it here. I saw last week they were sponsoring a local tennis tournament. The caddies and everything had their t-shirts. So you will have to be really creative in order to gain awareness and drive traffic. And the paid media is not the proper answer for it.
Now, something I think we can do as an industry all together is try to actually, when it's regulated, go as an association to the main media, pay-per-click media, AdWords and Facebook, and show them the licenses. They do allow that in regulated places elsewhere, like the UK, right? So why wouldn't they in Paraguay, where you have a license, in Colombia, in Buenos Aires province and city? So something that we need to do together. I think they don't care so much at this minute. Sorry.
Yeah, but Sebastian, going back to the marketing, as Florencia said, talking about Betson, the Copa America and so on, and how Betson now acquire Incabet, I think from the point of view of a bit of Europe, obviously, as in Spain, now the operators advertisement on football or even teams, it's happening also in other countries in Europe, are forbidden. So the bookies can be allowed to promote on sports for regulations. I think from my experience is, when you think about sports betting on sports book, on at least, or from my experience, when you think on poker, everybody can think about in poker stars, because it's already in the mindset of everybody. But that's something that in sports books is not happening in South America. But when you are in, let's say, that's going to put again the example of Mexico, when you think on sports betting in Mexico, everybody thinks in Caliente, who is the main operator over there. So I think the Betson strategy to go inside Copa America and also acquire the rights of the sponsorship of the first division in Peru, instead of Movistar, who was before, I think is part of this strategy to go inside not only Peruvian market, but in the whole continent. So he's, when people, basically what Betson wants, in my opinion, is, okay, I want the people from whole South America, when people think about on the sports betting, on the sports book, they think on Betson immediately. And that's something, if you do first, is something really, really important. And at the end, you will acquire more users.
It's very important what Alvaro is saying at the moment, because I think localization is really, really important. And what Betson is doing is just try to associate Betson with Peru, and then with the whole region. And also something that they are doing, they have a really good brand ambassador. It's a real, a good, it's ex-soccer player with a very good image, Solano. I'm not sure if you are familiar with them. And they play around with him in social media. And this is taken for the other point, like what social media is driving to this equation to have new players in South America. Victor.
I'd like to add a precision on my last comment. I just saw that Google authorizes operators to do Google ads in Colombia. That changed over time.
Amazing.
So it's confirmed that legally authorized operators, they have to show their certificate,
the
licensing to Google, and they will be granted permission to do Google ads. So, just
perfect. Very good appreciation. Well, again, talking about localization and social media, what do you think about that?
Well, social media is important. As you say, Solano is a huge former footballer from Peru, but obviously we have seen before in other operators. I remember Ronaldo, obviously, in poker, also for Brazil. Well, Neymar has been there, obviously. I remember Juan Sebastián Verón also in Argentina for Poker Stars, all poker related, but obviously that's a strategy that works. We are back again. So if you are using a football player or another sportsman, sportswomen also, they will attract people to say, okay, if the main figure, the main sportsmen, sportswomen are doing that, okay, let's gonna do that. That's gonna interest. Another part is, as you said, Florencia, at the beginning, the education of the bettors, how the users can be educated to bet better. So that's another way, but that's a good point of start to have a good ambassador, as you said, Solano. Another, also promoting social media. So we have, Facebook or Google can have some ban, or depending of what you are promoting, especially regarding bonuses and so on. But as an example, in Spain, the bonuses are now forbidden, the welcome bonuses, but you can stay promoting. Okay, you can say, okay, let's gonna bet on the NBA, let's gonna bet on the Copa Libertadores or Copa Sudamericana, let's gonna bet on. So you can push to people to bet on, but obviously not offering money but that's something that you can do also in Latin America already.
Yeah, it's very important. Like when you were talking, I was thinking also in the influencers, that is like mini brand ambassador, where they really, really teach how to play. I saw a few influencers where they place a bet, or they were online, or trying to show how easy it's to bet, how easy is depositing. Like in the company that I'm working, we have a huge strategy about that, like working with influencer, where they even go to a shop and place a bet, and they were with in a vivo in live in Instagram, and I think that is something really important, because shows localization, because shows one guy who's a normal person, like a journalist or a soccer player, who is doing what you can do at home, and I think it's really, really important just to see that as a localization main point. Sebastian, you want to talk? I see your face.
No, I totally agree. I think influencers, it's super important. It brings everything you want. And it's not necessarily expensive. Like everybody today wants to be an influencer. There are too many influencers wannabes. So whenever you give them some sort of incentive, they will definitely go for it. And it's not, I would say, it's not so much about how many followers they have. It's about how much they are engaged with their community. I rather have an influencer with fewer followers, but that his community is super engaged, than to have somebody that has. Yeah, I wouldn't judge a good influencer just by the number of followers. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah,
Victor, what do you? Yeah.
Sorry, Florencia. Yes, especially as Sebastian said, because there are a lot of wannabes influencers, because and obviously you have to check out which ages you want to reach. Obviously, young ones, if they are allowed to bet over obviously 18 or 21, it depends of the country, and obviously the people for between 20 or 21, 30, 35, 40. So it depends. So that's something that is to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I think the last question, and we can wrap it up. It's about, it's different to acquire players for casino, sportsbook, lotto, or even esports that now is a boom in the industry. What do you think, Victor?
Well, the online casino is just beginning, to grow in Colombia, since before it was all about sports betting. We're seeing that there's no differentiation in terms of which segment they're targeting for, bet online, and since they're showing the same content in their social media for casino and for sportsbook, I think that there's progress to be made there in order to segment better, which players to target in both worlds. So yeah, I think that as you mentioned with these influencers, it might be a good strategy. And here in Colombia, we have platforms that democratize the access to big celebrities. You pay something like $200 to $300, and you can get, physically speaking about your product, main actors and main sport athletes and social media. So, there are platforms to do that same thing, but I think that there's progress to be made to advertise and differentiate both products.
And in terms of affiliation, Alvaro, what do you think?
Well, from our perspective in Expedia, obviously, our main one is to rank, obviously, from content on Google, have a good keyword research, especially for all the countries. Especially now, we are focusing more in the Spanish market and Mexico, but obviously, we are also taking into consideration keywords who are ranking, especially on Colombia and Argentina, so on dedicated pages for them. So that's how we are trying to attract players through our data provider and odds comparison tool, just to get the traffic from them, because obviously there is a good thing. Obviously, we talked at the beginning about, yes, we need a proper page for each one, but obviously at the end, when you see the research of the words, of the keywords, there are many keywords we are using in the same way. So that's something we have to work with, and that's what we are doing in Expedia to get the traffic, especially from now Latin America, who is bumping a lot.
Yeah, and Seba, I know that you work with casino a lot. What do you think? Because I think casino is more difficult than other verticals to attract players.
Yeah, absolutely. No, each product vertical has different acquisition channels. Particularly for casino players, it usually has to be a very casino-oriented site if it's an affiliate, or a casino-oriented or more demographic-oriented influencer if that's social media. But definitely more difficult and different to that of poker. So you would have a challenge in every country for every vertical.
Cool. Well, We have then customer support, we have product, we have payments, we have a differentiation in the affiliates and localization. Victor, what do you want to say?
Just, to, as Sebastian mentioned, in terms of challenges also, in order, to differentiate the content, you will find in Colombia that is very hard to find talent that know copywriting. So that's another challenge that operators will face is, finding the proper talent that is, going to create the content, the written content, and taking good pictures and everything is a tough challenge. We face it. It's not easy to find these kind of people. So that just to mention that.
That's very, very curious. Like, I think, well, it's coming with education. Just to, like, gambling is I think in Latam is not something that is really common or well seen, and maybe a journalist doesn't want to write about that. But I think it's coming with the time. Okay, the time is over. I would like to thank you, you three. Thank you so much to be so early, Victor in Colombia, and yeah, see you next time.
So thank you everyone for participating in this amazing event, and welcome to this amazing panel. How has 2020 accelerated a new era in gaming in Latin America? So I'd like to welcome our panelists in this session, starting with Florencia Brancato from Pinnacle. She's head of Latin America. Also Michael Muscat from iGaming Colombia, and also partner at Helix Partners, and also Ivan Guzman from Asensi Abogados. So thank you so much for being here, and we are going to use this. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna already start with a question, and for all of you. And as you go and get to that question, I will also ask you to give a brief introduction of yourself and what you do, and move forward with this amazing conversation. I also, if you're watching this, please feel free to ask questions. We are online and eager to answer your questions as well. So let's move forward. I'll briefly start with myself. I'm Andre, as you can see, down here. I'm the CEO and founder of GamePlan. GamePlan is a business and marketing intelligence company based in Brazil, and we work in the games industry for the last 7 years as a company. I myself have been working with gaming for the last 24 years. So it's a lot of time doing this, and we help companies around the world to figure out their strategies for Latin America and all the other places in the world. Feel free to contact us. So the question is, so what is the impact? So we know that COVID, the pandemic, actually it had this amazing, this huge, impact all over the world, right? And we have obviously a very, hard and difficult time, dealing with all the situations, created by the pandemic. But one of the things that actually happened is that people, overall, communities and populations, actually were pushed into digital. So everyone that had the opportunity to go digital went digital, because we still can't, leave our homes and we need to social distance. So there's a lot of home office going on. We will spend a lot of time in front of our computers. So and that pushed a lot of people into that digitalization era, which is now stronger than ever as we start leaving this situation, right? So what, in your opinion, what is how do you see, how do you see the situation happening in your region, and how do you see that affecting gaming as a whole? What are the trends? How do you see that impacting our industry? So I'm gonna start with women's first. So I'm gonna start with Florencia. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Well, I'm the head of Latam from Pinnacle. I've been working in the industry for 14 years already, and one of the main impacts was like in 2020 we have a situation where all the sportsbooks need to change and have the ability to see other verticals and try to move forward, because we were lack of events. You have like I don't know, Belarusia Champions League working only, and was very difficult for us to attract the players and try to see if the entertain goes on, And one of the main things was like, okay, what is happening, what we need to do. We focus in esports, where in Pinnacle is pretty big. And from there, we learned a lot. It was a complete year where we learned how to attract these new players from esports. Also, we focus in casino, which we always focus like mainly in sports. Okay, we need to diversify ourselves. And I think that was a big challenge for us, but we did it great, and was a good year for us. The main learn was, okay, this is a difficulty and we need to move forward. What is happening with like the entertainment still there, and as you mentioned, like people at home need to have something to entertain themselves. Was a lot of time being in front of the computer, and they need to do something else, not only work or seeing movies or being in the university. And I think that was one of the things that we tried to bring to the all regions. All regions are different. Brazil is more developed in that sense, was much easier, to bring players. Peru, Mexico, they are gain. Colombia, of course, Ivan can tell us better, but it's a licensed market. It is much easier to attract in that sense. But I think that was one of the main challenges.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your insight, Florencia. So as you mentioned, Ivan, let's talk. So Ivan, my friend, what are your your insights about this crazy times that we lived in the last year and a half?
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Michael and Florencia, for being here. Of course, the COVID pandemic was a very difficult situation for Colombia. But when it comes to the gaming market, I see it as that it was an opportunity for the industry to keep growing. The one particularity of the industry in Colombia is that this industry is very linked to the health sector in Colombia. Why? Because revenue from the gaming industry directly impacts the revenue of the health sector in Colombia. So the Colombian government, the local regulator called Juegos, and particularly the Ministry of Finance, had a very particular interest in themselves to help the industry keep growing and keep operating. So as we see, Colombia has a very new regulation regarding online gaming. It's a 5 years regulation, but the impact of the COVID pandemic could be seen better for the online gaming industry in the last year. And it is a very resilient industry. We have figures as of April 2021 that 17 licensed gaming operators in Colombia got an estimated $1.2 billion to turnover and a $97 million GGR. So I see that this trend towards digitalization has been greatly taken advantage from online operators in the country, aside including a friendly regulatory environment in Colombia, not just for gaming industry, but for foreign investment. The Colombian government is very eager in attracting investment to the country. And I see this as a mix of good things that have been happening in Colombia that has helped this online trend to greatly impact the online gaming sector in Colombia. So I see that Colombia is a very, very, very nice case study for resiliency for the industry, not just in Latin America, but the whole world.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Colombia has been like this spear, this is spear point on the market, especially in Latin America, and is an example for all of us. So now I'm moving to Michael, who is right now in Malta. So and he's from iGaming as well in Colombia. So I would like to know from you, Michael, what's the broad vision? So looking at the region as a whole, how do you see the region pushing forward towards the new normal?
Andrea, thanks for having me. Just by way of an introduction, my name is Michael Muscat. I'm a partner at iGaming Colombia, which is a multinational consultancy aimed at bringing the European operators into the Latin American markets, via Colombia being the first regulated market in the region. As Ivan very correctly said, we could really see the positive, if any positive aspects of the pandemic as far as gambling is concerned in Colombia, because all the gaming taxes in Colombia are given directly to the health sector. And that had a knock-on effect for the regulator to create new products, to open its mind to new verticals, such as the live casino vertical, which was recently regulated in this market over the past year, and also now instant win games as well. So you've got a pro-business regulator which wants to generate more revenues and to assist the health system in coping with the pandemic. Also, the creation of these new products helped the land-based sector, which was closed, to go online. So I think that also was a driving force behind the digitization in this market. On the whole, what I'm seeing from my presence when I come and go from Bogota, and also when I deal with clients in different markets in Latam, is also, for example, payments are becoming more at par with what's going on in Europe and the rest of the world. So where you mainly had a cash-based society before and a retail-based society, now payments are even going online, and you're seeing the presence of new neobanks and legislation for neobanks as well. So if one looks at, for example, Rappi and RappiPay in Colombia, as one probably has experienced being in Bogota, we're seeing the new kind of PSP type providers coming into the market, and not just traditional banks. Also, we're seeing millions of new bank accounts being opened by users who normally just preferred cash. So we're seeing new gaming products and new methods of payment, and I think that's really what's bringing the Latam markets at par with what's going on in Europe and the rest of the world.
Michael, thank you so much for what you just said, because you actually gave me a hook to my next question. As I was researching for this panel, one of the things that got me really curious was exactly about how the cohorts, how the public, right, is managing, and how the companies are managing the last mile. So as we know, for the ones, the people that are watching us, last mile is exactly how do we touch our consumers, and how do we actually monetize from them through our services, through our platforms. And in the moment where we don't have so much, basically no physical venues or happenings, as for instance, Florencia actually spoke very well about this. So as we don't have that anymore, and we are starting to have that probably in 2022, how do you all see this mix of, going back to physical, but at the same time, what are the digital last miles that really, improved and maybe be the new, the new pattern for the next years. So I'm saying, so people, they transition to mobile, they transition to the web, they transition to to e-commerces, so payments. So as Michael, starts talking about fintechs. So fintechs are all over the place. Digital banks are literally everywhere. Happy Bank here in Brazil, it's a massive phenomena. So they're basically the literally millions of bank accounts are being opened for people that never had. Even here in Brazil, we have a problem of people actually having bank accounts. So it's so easy to have one right now and to operate on the online and digital commerces. So for people who didn't have that opportunity before, so how do you see this transition and how this will impact the business moving forward? So I'm gonna start right now with Ben. I'm gonna start all the way, from at least from my screen, all the way to Ben. What do you think? And then we're gonna get everyone's opinions on this.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. And I think the digitalization trend for Colombia, for example, is here to stay. As I mentioned before the pandemic, the online gaming market was still a growing market, but not as important when it comes to terms of revenue for the local regulator. But as we have seen, this pandemic situation and the continued support from the regulator has helped grow the industry to get a 26% participation in the regulator's revenue. So I think this is a figure that is of very high interest for the regulator, but it's a good demonstration that the online gaming market is continuing to grow, and this digitalization trend is continuing to have a lot of interest for the Colombian people. And that's just in the gaming market. As Michael mentioned before, on the banking industry, we are looking at trends in Colombia towards digitalization. Same for work at home industry, for services through the cloud. So I think Colombia has a very good interest in this particular trend. And as we can see from the gaming industry, it has percolated very well into the industry, has helped the sector grow, but is helping other sectors grow and move towards digitalization in the country.
So as I pass, thank you so much, Ivan. As I pass the screen to Florencia, as Pinnacle also works with esports, what is the how that is affecting esports as well? I'm very curious to learn how monetization is going on since all the big stadium venues and all that amazing ecosystem since was basically shut down by the pandemic. And how do you see that?
Well, it was a learning process, and yeah, everything was shut down, no public in everywhere. And what I saw, all the Champions League, all the leagues were online. Everything was all the streamer, there was a really move forward of much more streamers, much more influencers talking about the events, and really was online. All the social media was up and down talking about the esports event. And what Pinnacle did was to make their own Pinnacle Cup from esports. We have a Dota 2 one, and also one for CSGO. And this is something that is going to be continuing, and we are going to still doing it, which I think was a learning from the pandemic, but it's something that is going to stay. As Ivan said, this is not growing only from us, it's growing for everything. People learn how to buy a jacket or clothes, internet, or I know, go to the supermarket and doing it online, which was before 2020 was something like not in every country they use it. They don't have payment options to do it. And now it's like, okay, this is an opportunity. And I think people take it out. And so do I, like Pinnacle did it as well. And we make this Pinnacle event for the esport. And we took a lot of influencers talking about the event and us, and even teams. Like something that I saw was like a lot of companies, they started to sponsorship the esports team as well. Like was a lot of investment and monetize the fact that esports is big now, and started to grow in like a really important vertical as well.
Thank you so much, Florencia. So as we move to Michael, we're kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna kind of mix and match with you, Michael, with going into your last words. I wanted you to complete this thought and talk a little bit about what are your impressions on this topic, but also as a final remark, I wanted to ask all of you to kind of share, if a company is looking for opportunities in emerging markets, and Latin America is definitely this massive opportunity landscape to be, to invest in, and to so many opportunities happening in all of the countries. So, what would be your advice for companies in Europe, in Asia, in the US that are right now looking at us, want to invest in Latin America? What is your final advice? So I'm going to start with you, Michael. Give your thoughts on our last topic, and if you could, talk a little bit about, what would be a nice advice for a company that is moving into region.
Sure. Just to touch upon slightly what Florencia was saying, and speaking from a product perspective, the pandemic did bring about this shift in preference, obviously, because sports events were cancelled, and Latam is predominantly a sports-based market. So we're seeing this shift now from simply sports to also live casino to instant win games. So from a product perspective, I think it's really interesting times. And as far as originality is concerned, it's no longer a situation where you just go in pushing the football and hope to get gamblers to sign up, to players to sign up to your site. It's now also about innovation and about bringing new types of products. Seeing the live casino vertical come into play in Colombia is a great testament to that, because the cross-selling that's going on in the market is the revenue streams that are being shifted to this are significant. So I think, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time before things like esports, really kick off and become the new type of gaming, where it's more focused on fun and more focused on social elements as well. So I think this is a really interesting time for product in Latam. My advice to anybody wanting to get into the new markets and to get into Latin America as a frontier market would be to localize, to know that each part of Latam is different. It's different countries. So we speak quite generally when we're talking about this market, but actually it's a bunch of different markets. And also to have your payment systems in place and have your guys on the ground, because a local presence is fundamental.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm gonna move to Iban. What are your thoughts on what advice would you give to the people there, to our audience?
Well, yes, from Asencia Abogados, we're usually working a lot of time with European players in the sector to get into the country. So our advice would be just take a very close look to Latin America. Latin America is still a very nice and growing market, but take a strong look at Colombia. Colombia has been a very friendly regulatory environment for these operators. That now there are 17 operating in the country. The regulator, Coljuegos, is very open to work with them to get into the country and to continue improving their operations in the country. Colombia is a very nice example of continuous regulatory updates regarding money laundering, financing of terrorism, and regulations that generate confidence and security to the market regarding the safety and the legality of the operations. I know for our work with our clients that international liquidity is still a matter of very nice interest for all of these operators, and the local regulator, Corjuegos, has heard them, and it is now working towards getting regulations in place towards international liquidity to allow the current players in the market to exploit other verticals, such as poker, which is a very high interest for Colombia players, and help new commerce into the market to have good operations and get great revenues in the country. So take a very nice look at Colombia, because Colombia is open for business for all of you guys.
Thank you, Ivan. Florencia, your last words. We don't have a lot of time. I'm sorry about that, but
no, I know.
Your last words.
I'm taking what Michael said about localization. I think that is the main thing. Latin America, South America is completely different from the top to the bottom. And it's very important just to see each country. Even we have Brazil that speaks Portuguese and not Spanish. And the Spanish is not the same from Spain. And that is the first mistake that everybody is making. But also I think it's payment option is really, and use the local currency from each country. It's important. And something that it's really good to see. It's like, as Ivan said, Colombia is a regulatory market, but also Brazil is becoming to be, and it's really important. But there's a lot of people that is coming and they spending money, but they think it's customer support, like user experience is also really important. Doesn't matter to have, people spending money, having, I don't know, Neymar as a brand ambassador, but if you don't take care of your customer.
You don't do the basics, right? So thank you. So thank you so much for my amazing panelists on this, how 2020 accelerated this new era of gaming in Latin America. We're pretty sure that actually accelerated that, I think this is the main point. It's a huge land of opportunity for anyone that wants to invest on a booming market. Thank you all once again. And we'll be happy to answer any questions moving forward. Thank you again very much, and see you soon.
And with that, we're coming to the close of our 2-day SiGMA Americas Virtual Summit. Thank you very much to the speakers, sponsors, exhibitors, and the viewers for tuning in. Join us for our next big event, SiGMA Malta, November 16th through the 18th. And for the first time ever, SiGMA will be bringing its 4 leading brands together under one roof for a multifaceted event with crossover into emerging tech, affiliate marketing, and medtech. For more information and to register for this epic in-person event, please visit sigma.world.
Living if you're already dead, it's not worth saying if it's already said. Even if it all goes over your head, believe it if you want to. So keep your eyes on the road and your head in the stars. Follow it down the rabbit hole just a little while longer. You can change anything if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to.
Deportes, eSports, casino online, caballos y mucho más. Regístrate ahora, deposita y cobra desde casa. Ve